Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Discriminating Gamer. Say, did you hear that Elton John bought his pet rabbit a treadmill? It's a little bit funny. Ladies and gentlemen, today we're going to go ahead and take a look at my top 10 games with years in the title. Hello everybody, we'll be back to the review in just a second. I just want to take a minute to tell you to go visit Galaxy of Games in West Jordan, Utah. It is Utah's newest game store. It's run by friends of mine. It's a great place, great selection, great prices, well-lit, clean bathrooms. If you go in there, ladies and gentlemen, and you tell them that I sent you, the Discriminating Gamer, and you use the promo code TDG, you'll get 10% off of your purchase. Check out Galaxy of Games. Well, everybody, super excited to see you here today. We're going to take a look at my top 10 games that have years in the title. I was actually thinking about this the other day. I play a lot of games that are historical games that have years actually in the title of the game. And so I thought, you know what? I'm going to look at my games that I think are the best that have years in the title. And I was surprised. I was amazed at how many great games I have played over the years that have years in the title. So, just to really quickly, I'm going to do a brief honorable mentions. Tarawa 1943 is a fantastic game, a solitaire game about the attack there in Tarawa in World War II. That's from Worthington Games. Chancellorsville 1863, also from Worthington, about the Battle of Chancellorsville during the American Civil War. Great game. One I played here just recently, 1941 Race to Moscow, in which you're trying to deal with the logistic issues of supplying the various German army groups as they advanced into Russia. Another one I played recently, Siege of Quebec, 1759, which is another solitaire game in which, of course, you're set during the French and Indian War. And, of course, Worthington did a lot of the other great siege games as well that could easily have been honorable mentions. But let's go ahead and let's just jump into my list. Number 10 is 1944 Battle of the Bulge. This one is also a Worthington game. This game is a very good simulation. Well, not a simulation, it's a game. Kind of a lighter look at the Battle of the Bulge. You, of course, have got die. You're rolling for the armor or infantry symbols. And you're moving your units, of course, along the roads, the paths. There's choke points. And there's different scenarios, too, that you can actually play that kind of mix it up, that change it up. So you're not just sticking to the standard game the whole time. But it's actually very well done. A very, very good Battle of the Bulge game. Plays in about 2 to 3 hours, probably closer to 2. But it still packs a major punch. It's a great war game, great hex and counter war game, and just a tremendous experience all around. That is 1944 Battle of the Bulge from Worthington. My number 9 is also, again, from Worthington. This is Struggle for Europe, 1939 to 1945. This is a deck destruction game, not unlike Lincoln. But it's a game where you're using your cards in order to move units, to build armies, to move armies around the board. But as you're doing it, you actually have to not only discard cards, you actually have to destroy cards, get them out of the game. So your decks are actually getting thinner as the game progresses. And as the game goes on, the Axis, of course, are getting weaker and weaker. The Allies are getting stronger and stronger. And it becomes the dynamic of the game shifts quite a bit over the course of this game. But this is a great, again, probably 2 to 3 hour game that does the entirety of the European War in a very simplified way, but still it packs a huge punch, and you still have incredible strategic decisions throughout, and the way the game with the deck destruction deck works, with the way those game mechanics works, are just incredibly fun. So that is Struggle for Europe, 1939 to 1945, again from Worthington. My number 8 is a game that I just played here recently, and this is Quartermaster General 1914. Now, in Quartermaster General 1914, players take on the roles of the various belligerents in the war. Sometimes they're combined, like I think Italy and France are one country, Austria and the Ottoman Empire are one, UK, US are one. But what you're doing is you're playing these cards largely for logistical purposes. You're prepping cards, so you lay cards down so that when you fight wars, you've got kind of supplies that you can draw from during that battle, during those battles. But you also have other ways you can use cards. You can do attrition warfare, where you're attacking other people's cards. You're essentially taking cards out of their hand. Because the cards, once they're gone, they're gone. They're not coming back. And so the game, as it progresses, becomes harder and harder to kind of maintain your momentum regardless of which country you are. Germany certainly has some advantages out of the gate. It's a behemoth, but it gets whittled down, and it can't maintain its that momentum forever. So it's a very interesting challenge. It's a very, very cool game. I actually played it with some people that didn't care much for it, but I thought it was an absolute blast. So this is Quartermaster General 1914. That is from Ares Games. My number 7 is a game that I also played not too long ago. This is W1815. Now, W1815 is Waterloo 1815, and this is a game that plays really quickly. It's about a 20-minute game, 30 minutes at the outside. You have your cards for your various units, your various corps and cavalry in front of you. You're either, of course, Wellington or Napoleon. And what you do is you just essentially select which card you're going to play. You roll the die to see what happens during the attack. You can lose morale, you can lose casualties, you can lose the blocks from the board. There's all sorts of things that can happen during the game that will cause you to lose morale or casualties here. But it's a very simple game. It's incredibly simple to play. Of course, you can bring the Prussians in that can attack Napoleon's flank. Napoleon's got the artillery that can fire. It's just really good. It does a good job of evoking the history while still at the same time having some really fun and interesting gameplay mechanics in it. Really enjoyed W1815. It's got a ton of surprises for what you would think it would be. It's tremendous fun. That is my number 7. That is from UMP Games. My number 6 is a game, honestly, I haven't played in years, but it is amazing. And it's one I really need to get to the table again. It is a riff on another game from the same designer, which I do like better, but this game is freaking awesome, and it's got a year in the title, so I'm going with this. But this is 1989 Dawn of Freedom. 1989 Dawn of Freedom is very similar to Twilight Struggle. Jason Matthews designed them both. I was a co-designer on both of them. And Dawn of Freedom is great because it's that year in 1989 where you've got the fall of the Soviet Union, the fall of the Eastern Bloc, rather, and you've got the communists and the Democrat. And the communists are desperately trying to hold on to power, while the Democrat is trying to, of course, introduce democracy further and further into the Eastern European sphere. It's great. You've got a fun scoring system where you're trying to kind of match, party and party bosses and Politburo and the workers and the students and the intellectuals, and you're trying to match these things during it. I actually do like the scoring system better in 1989 than I do in Twilight Struggle. But it's a fantastic game. Really like 1989 Dawn of Freedom. That is from GMT Games. That's my number 6. My number 5 should come as no surprise after the number 6. That is to say, they're kind of sister games here. This is also another riff on Twilight Struggle. This is 1960, The Making of a President. 1960, The Making of a President is an absolutely fantastic game in which one of you plays the role of Richard Nixon and one of you plays the role of John Kennedy, and you are attempting to, of course, become the President of the United States. You've got momentum tokens you can spend in order to activate cards your enemy has played. And about halfway through the game, you have debates that can kind of shift the issues and shift the board, but you're trying to get the electoral votes in the various states. So you're placing cubes throughout the country. It is tremendous fun, highly educational, and it's just a great all-around game. It's a great riff on this kind of a system here. So that is number 5, 1960, Making of a President, and that is from GMT Games. My number 4 is Napoleon, the Waterloo Campaign, 1815. Now this is from Columbia Games, and this is kind of a block war game, kind of a grand Napoleonic adventure here. You've, of course, got one player is playing Napoleon, the other player is playing the Prussians and the English, or you can divide them. But I love the map here, because the map is not a hex encounter. It's not spaces. It's literally just towns along a map. It looks like a map, and you're just moving from town to town. You're moving your blocks to the different towns. If you get a big enough battle, you actually switch to a battle board that may have some terrain on there that's pretty fun. And you're trying to maintain your line. You're trying to hold your line. But I really like the fog of war element here, because you don't know where the bulk of Napoleon's forces are. You don't know what the Allies are doing. It's just a tremendous game played over a series of nights and days and engagements. Probably my favorite Waterloo game that I played. Really in depth, but it packs a punch. But it's easy to learn. It's easy to play, and there's so much meat there. It's really a tremendously fun and just great thematic game. So that is Napoleon, the Waterloo Campaign, 1815. That is my number 4 from Columbia Games. My number 3 is another game from Worthington, and this may have been one of the first games I played from Worthington. This is Freeman's Farm, 1777. Now, Freeman's Farm 1777 is another game where you've got the cards in front of you, the different units, the different divisions, and you're activating the different divisions. You're drawing special cards that you lay out that are let you play dirty tricks on your enemies. You get momentum cubes that you can spend to do that, but you can also spend them for rerolls, so there's choices there. But essentially, you're trying to break your enemy. You're trying to destroy enough of their units that they can't hold, and you're trying to occupy certain locations on the game board as well. Absolutely brilliant game. It's one of those games where you look at the board and it looks like you don't have any choices because it looks like the arrows are pointing to where all the units move and there's no real choice there, but there is so much choice here. I freaking love Freeman's Farm 1777. I mentioned Chancellorsville 1863. They're both by Maurice Suckling. They're both great games, but I give the edge to Freeman's Farm because I don't know what it is. The game is just brilliant. It's simple, it's straightforward, and it is so much fun. So that is Freeman's Farm 1777. That is my number 3 from Worthington. My number 2 game was my game of the year a couple of years ago when it came out. It amazed me how much I like this game because looking at it, I thought it was probably going to be a little more complicated than I like, and it's not that complicated. There's a lot going on, but it's not terribly complicated. But it is a game that simulates one of the great diplomatic moments in world history. This, of course, is Versailles 1919. Versailles 1919 is a great game where you are the various belligerents after World War I, the victors, rather, of World War I, and you are attempting to craft the Treaty of Versailles. As you're doing it, you've got different issues that are up for debate, but then at various times, you can have outbreaks around the world. You can have kind of rebellions and uprisings, and you need to send military units to do that, but that's unpopular when you do that. And what's more, any settled issues in that part of the world suddenly are up for grabs again, and anybody can bid on them and attempt to get them. And it's a brilliant system. It's a great way, because those issues are worth points at the end of the game, and so it's a great way to steal points. But you each have kind of your own specific agendas you're working toward. What do you want out of a peace treaty? There's the Japanese and the Italians, too, that are NPCs in the less than 4-player games that you've got to take into account. There's just so much in this game that really, I think, reflects the history in an interesting way. I also think the aesthetic is really cool. I just like the way it looks. I like the way the cards look and everything comes together. This is a game, I've only played this game a handful of times. I still need to play it more. But every time I played it, we all walk away with a grin on our face, even when we lose, because it's just so much fun. It's intense. It's kind of Euro-y, but not overly Euro-y. Really enjoy it. This is Versailles 1919. That is from GMT Games, and that is my number 2. My favorite game of all time with a year in the title. I'll tell you right now, Versailles 1919 nearly got it. But the more and more I thought about it, the more and more I think my number 1 is my number 1 for a reason. It's pretty consistently been in my top 10 games of all time, I think, for the last several years. This is Rebellion 1775, or 1775 Rebellion, as the case may be. But this game is from Academy Games. It is a brilliant game of area control, but also it's got this great American Revolution theme to it. So you're playing these cards that are very evocative of the American Revolution, but you are also you're moving your units from kind of state to state. You can ally with Native Americans that join you, and then you've got these battles that are so freaking cool because you roll the die and you may roll a runaway symbol. So on your own die, you can force your own guys to flee, and then they can come back later. But it's such an interesting combat system that I really like it. And what I really enjoy about this game is the turn system, because what you do is every turn you reach into a bag and you pull out a colored die that reflects one of the players. So you never know who goes next. You never know whose turn is coming up. And that means you can't plan like you want to plan. And it really throws a monkey wrench into kind of your long-term strategy every turn. And I actually freaking love that. That is so much fun. It'd be a completely different game if if turns were set or it was just clockwise or something. And it's an amazing experience. I freaking love that aspect of this game. There have been several. So this one wasn't the first in the series. The 1812 was the first. There have been a few since 1754, and then 878 Vikings, and then GMT just did the Plains Indian Wars games, and I think they're all tremendous. I think this one still remains the best in my opinion. I freaking love 1775 Rebellion, and if you haven't played it, please, I hope you get a chance to. You will freaking love it. But that is 1775 Rebellion. That is from Academy Games, and that is my #1 game of all time with a year in it. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining me today for this look at my favorite games with years in the title. Tell me, what are some of your favorite games with years in the title? Do you like mine? Do you not like mine? What do you think? I'm eager to find out. I'm eager to hear what people have to say about my lists. Well, please leave a comment for us on YouTube, Board Game Geek, and check us out on Facebook, on Twitter. We really appreciate your engagement with us on social media. I'd also ask you to check out my other channel, that is Cody Carlson, PhD, where we talk about military history and books on history and fun things like that. Please check it out. Please subscribe. You know, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to ask you, what is it that is green and has wheels? Grass. I lied about the wheels.
Please somebody help me on my feet again, and I don't know where I'm going, and I don't know where I've been. Please somebody help me on the solid ground. It's a long time, and I'll be dying. Once a year I wind up in the band. God knows that I love to fight, but I don't ever win. It's a fine line to damnation, but God let me in.
Ladies and gentlemen, I am the ghost of John Kennedy. Boo.